Royal mishaps, when kings and queens met their untimely ends. History is often painted with grand strokes, vast empires, lavish courts, and royal power. But behind the crowns and riches, there are moments of startling misfortune, when the very rulers who seemed untouchable met their ends in the most bizarre ways. These stories remind us that no amount of wealth or power can protect you from the whims of fate. So, buckle up for some royal mishaps that will make you scratch your head and maybe even chuckle. 1. Qin Shi Huangdi, the emperor who took live forever too literally. Qin Shi Huangdi, the first emperor of China, was obsessed with achieving immortality. Forget the fountain of youth, he figured he'd try something a bit more chemically adventurous. In a desperate attempt to live forever, he consumed large doses of mercury, believing it would grant him eternal life. Well, he certainly got an unforgettable exit, just not the one he had in mind. Turns out, mercury is a tiny bit toxic. Who knew? His quest for immortality ended up being the ultimate self-sabotage. Guess immortality wasn't meant to be for this ambitious emperor. 2. King George II of Great Britain and Ireland, a royal flush. King George II of Britain, who enjoyed a decent, long life of 77 years, could have been an advocate for healthy living, but fate had other plans for him. On October 25, 1760, while most kings might have expected to meet their end in battle or from illness, King George II had the most undignified death imaginable. According to historical accounts, the king met his unfortunate end while straining on his close stool, that's right, on the toilet, or what we would now call the royal throne. The image of a king, so powerful and regal in life, succumbing to nature's call is almost too much for history to bear. It's as if the universe itself had a royal sense of humor, mocking the king's lofty status by claiming him in the most mundane and embarrassing of ways. Talk about a royal flush, his final act was literally sitting on a throne, just not the one he'd hoped for. 3. Sigurd the Mighty, a warrior's worst trophy. Sigurd the Mighty, a fearsome Norse warrior, was renowned for leading the Vikings into Scotland. He made an enemy of the local Scottish leader, Maelbrigd, and the two warriors agreed to settle their feud in a battle. They arranged for each side to bring 40 men to the battlefield. However, Sigurd, ever the tactician, didn't stick to the rules, he brought 80 men. Predictably, Sigurd won the battle and defeated Maelbrigd. As a symbol of his victory, Sigurd took Maelbrigd's decapitated head and tied it to the saddle of his horse. In the moment, it must have seemed like a perfect way to celebrate his triumph. As he rode home with it tied to his saddle, the head bounced up and bit his leg. This seemingly harmless act was to become his undoing. The severed head caused a deep wound in Sigurd's leg, and the injury quickly became infected. Despite his strength and victory on the battlefield, Sigurd's fate was sealed by something as mundane as a bite from a severed head. He died from the infection, thus showing that even the mightiest warriors can fall victim to poor hygiene. Moral of the story? Don't get too cocky with trophies, even a decapitated head can cause more than just a headache. 4. King Alexander of Greece, the monkey business that went too far. King Alexander of Greece's death in 1920 was one of the most bizarre and tragic accidents in royal history. At just 27 years old, he wasn't felled by a sword or a political enemy, but by a monkey. Yes, you heard that right. The young king was strolling through the grounds of his palace in Athens when one of Pallas's domesticated monkeys attacked his German shepherd, Fritz. In a heroic, but ill-fated, attempt to break up the fight, Alexander was bitten by a second monkey. The bites became infected, leading to sepsis. Within a month, the infection proved fatal. The king's untimely demise sent shockwaves through Greece and the royal family. After all, how does one prepare for the death of a monarch at the hands of a monkey? His passing not only brought a tragic end to his reign but also led to political turmoil for the Greek monarchy. It's a reminder that, no matter how powerful you are, fate can be just as unpredictable and sometimes even a little monstrous. Moral of the story? Always be careful when monkeys are involved, especially when they seem to have a personal vendetta. 5. Emperor Charles VI, the mushrooms that took down an empire. Holy Roman Emperor Charles VI had everything going for him except for one little meal. While visiting Vienna, the emperor made a fatal culinary mistake. He ate the wrong kind of mushrooms. What he thought was a tasty, safe dish turned out to be a toxic variety. And just like that, one wrong bite ended his reign and his life. Despite ruling one of the most powerful empires in the world, Charles VI couldn't escape the perils of a bad mushroom. A little food poisoning, and boom, no more emperor. It's almost poetic. He could command armies, but couldn't outsmart a fungus. Even emperors have to watch what they eat, though I doubt they ever thought their last meal would come from the forest floor. 6. King William II of England, a hunting accident. King William II of England met his untimely demise while indulging in a leisure activity he loved, hunting. However, this particular hunt didn't quite go as planned. He was accidentally struck by an arrow shot by one of his own men. The irony: the king was an avid hunter, but on this occasion, it was him who ended up as the target. There were rumors that this accident might have been a cleverly orchestrated assassination, possibly ordered by his successor, King Henry I. But considering the chaotic nature of medieval hunting, where large groups of men would ride through the woods, shooting arrows, often while possibly drunk or distracted, it's just as likely that this was simply a tragic accident. After all, hunting accidents were common in those days, especially when people were firing arrows without much precision or sobriety. 7. King Henry I of England, a feast too grand for his own good. King Henry I of England, who ruled for 36 years, met his untimely end in a rather tragic, and, frankly, embarrassing, way. His cause of death: food poisoning from his beloved lampreys. These eel-like fish were his favorite delicacy, and despite his doctor's warnings, he couldn't resist a grand feast of them. The result: a severe case of food poisoning that ended up claiming the king's life. Talk about a fatal craving. Henry, who had a long and prosperous reign, fell victim to his own indulgence. It seems even the mightiest rulers can be brought down by something as humble as bad seafood. Moral of the story: even royals need to learn the fine art of moderation, especially when it comes to slippery foods. Too much of a good thing can literally kill you. 8. William Adlin, a shipwreck of royal proportions. William Adlin, heir to the English throne and son of King Henry I, met a tragically ironic end by sinking his own future. After a trip to Normandy, Adlin and his crew decided to celebrate their return to England with a bit too much drinking. With the wine flowing freely, they set sail, but in their inebriated state, they crashed their ship into a rock. The boat sank, and unfortunately, many of the passengers, including the heir himself, drowned. This royal screw-up marked the end of William's brief life and put the throne in jeopardy since he was the only surviving male heir of Henry I. The mishap set off a chaotic scramble for succession, paving the way for a period of political unrest in England. Moral of the story: while royals may have grand feasts and palaces, their heirs still can't handle their liquor. Too much wine can sink more than just ships, it can sink an entire dynasty. 9. King Adolf Frederick of Sweden, a feast of doom. King Adolf Frederick of Sweden, in a tragic case of too much of a good thing, met his end after indulging in a truly excessive feast on Shrove Tuesday in 1771. He ate a lavish spread that included everything from caviar and lobster to a variety of meats, washing it down with champagne. But just when you think he might have reached his limit, he decided to finish off his meal with a Nordic pastry called Selma. Not one, not two, but 14 of these pastries. Because, why not? Later that evening, the king complained of severe indigestion, and unfortunately, the royal gluttony led to fatal digestive complications. Moral of the story: even kings need to know when to say enough, especially when it comes to dessert. 10. King Charles VIII of France, a headbanging affair. King Charles VIII of France, known for his clumsiness, was rushing to watch a tennis match, the priorities of royalty, when he accidentally smacked his head on a door frame. And that, dear viewers, is how a king's hectic day of tennis viewing led to an untimely death. The moral here: slow down, or risk a literal headache. 11. King Charles II of Navarre, a fiery demise. King Charles II of Navarre's life ended in a most explosive and tragic way. While receiving treatment for a separate illness, a physician prescribed a bizarre remedy, wrapping him in brandy-soaked cloths. The treatment was intended to cure him, but things quickly went awry. A servant, tasked with ensuring the cloths fit snugly, noticed a loose thread but lacked scissors to trim it. Instead, she took a candle to burn it off, inadvertently igniting the alcohol-soaked cloth. The fire spread rapidly, causing severe burns that led to the king's death shortly afterward. Well, that's one version of the story. It's a fiery reminder that some royal treatments are just too risky. 12. King James II of Scotland, a cannon that shot more than just balls. King James II of Scotland's reign ended with a literal bang, unfortunately, from his own artillery. While besieging Roxburgh Castle to reclaim it from the English, James, who had a fascination with cannons, decided to fire one off in celebration. However, the cannon backfired, and because he was standing too close, he essentially blew himself up. Guess the only thing worse than being under siege is getting hit by your own cannon fire. Talk about a royal misfire. These tales of royal mishaps highlight that even the mightiest monarchs are not immune to fate's sometimes bizarre sense of humor. Whether it's a poisoning, a hunting accident, or a clumsy collision with a door frame, these rulers remind us that no one, no matter how powerful, is safe from life's most absurd endings. So the next time you think life is rough, just remember you could be a king and still manage to trip over your own crown.